Hello, I'm Bill Letson. I'm a retired firefighter from California's Central Coast. I experienced a profound near-death experience on duty in 1994. I had nowhere to turn for answers or even start talking about it back then. I kept quiet for 15 to 16 years. After retiring, it roared back, and I sought answers. That's a whole new story about old wisdom and how shamans and Native Americans didn't understand the history, religion, and science we've heard for centuries. Let me begin with my 1994 near-death experience. I was on duty at Station 11, a Goleta paramedic engine. The Santa Barbara emergency rooms were crowded of individuals suffering from the flu outbreak. We ran COVID calls like EMS Public Safety. They're still working. We found this woman in her room with a medical issue. She was in terrible pain, so I, a paramedic, acted. As I climbed across her to adjust her mask, she exhaled, and I inhaled, and it went right in. A few days later, I was sick like never before. I became unwell and needed an ambulance. I recall waking up and throwing up the opposite way, dehydrating and running out of water. In the mirror, I looked dark and emaciated like a skeleton. I had, well, something's wrong here. I couldn't feel my pulse and my heart rate was 150, so I knew my BP was under 80. I phoned my family, my niece called 911, and Santa Barbara County Fire picked me up, started 2 IVs, and drove me to a Santa Maria hospital in a Code 3 ambulance. I entered a room full of others with similar symptoms. The chief doctor prescribed morphine for pain and nausea to everyone. After 30 minutes and 2 IV fluid bags, I believed I could go home and start treatment. "No, these are orders," responded the nurse. "All of us get the same thing." As a good sport, I said yes, and I was sitting up, ready to go home, when she pushed the synthetic morphine Nubain and the nausea medication. I wasn't nauseated or in pain, but my wife stated she put it all in at once, and your eyes rolled back. Like seeing a cartoon, your eyes slid back, and you fell back on the bed you were climbing out of, which startled them off. Everyone came in, and she stated they Narcaned you. Paramedics use Narcan to treat opiate overdoses because it eliminates the drugs immediately. She stated you were Narcaned twice, given more IVs and put in the head down, and died. You were in intensive care because they couldn't take your blood pressure, which was 40/0. I stayed overnight. In the morning, they stated the only reason you lived was that I was a triathlete and completing Ironmans, so I had a great oxygen perfusion system, so nothing was shut off. That night, morphine vasodilated my entire system. I have a vessel full of liquid and fluid, and then all the vessel walls got larger, so the fluid that was left couldn't circulate or perfuse. I never regained consciousness, but I departed my body at 1:30 a.m. It was the best sensation. It was like I was freed from a hot, stuffy closet into a world of stars. As I flew over these big colored stars, they were very welcome and lovely. People call these things spheres, but we're energetic beings, and I was this great extended cloud. It felt ridiculously nice. I'm flying, feeling joyful like a cosmic. I felt like someone was pouring honey on my head and nerves, and everything was alive and exhilarating. Coming here into this world is difficult. I'm flying, and what was that? I was shaking my head, wondering how I forgot who I was. How could I have believed I was this person with all these relationships and issues when it was all false? It was all an illusion, a trick or game of entering the material realm as a person on Earth. As I soar, these orbs, stars, and colored wonders are all around me, and they're all acceptance, love, and joy like a homecoming. Suddenly, I landed after parading through this bunch. I arrived in an actual place with indirect lighting, tables, equipment, and people. I saw 3 short, dumpy individuals in dark robes with hoods in front of me. I saw sections of their faces, and they were beaming. They laughingly asked me many questions with glowing eyes. Years ago, I watched Communion and saw this picture, which perplexed me. They looked like those dark little elf-looking people Christopher Walken is hanging out with in a spaceship, but they were incredibly good-natured, fun, naughty, with enormous smiles and brilliant eyes. Many personal things were said. How was it? Why not tell us? You learned what? One looked at me, turned to the other 2, and said, "He doesn't remember us," and they laughed. I said, "I kind of remember you guys, but I'm having a little trouble here." This other man was kind of in charge. Like a trimmed-down Gumby or cactus, he was tall and wispy. He appeared to be vapor or mist. He strolled like an underwater person, separating and reuniting. He smiled broadly with beautiful eyes. My chest enlarged, my throat tightened, and I felt like crying uncontrollably from love. I was overwhelmed by this being's love. It was quiet and disorganized. 3 guys were laughing and bouncing, and the tall, wispy guy was laughing and smiling. I answered, "Well, I'm not going back there, so what are we going to do?" "My life review, is that next?" Tallest, wispy guy laughed deepest I've ever heard and added, "Sure, let's do that." How to begin? Thinking, this is not what it's supposed to be. I recounted some small stories with no remorse. I took another park ranger job instead of the one my wife wanted on an island where we would spend the summer alone. Maybe I should have taken the job, but that's all that came up. He adds, "Okay, that's enough. Time to go back." "Go back, dude? No way. Will not return. You talking about what?" "Here I am." He said, "Nope, you got things to do, and you're going back." The 3 little boys disappeared to another part of the complex, like they were reassigned. He approached me and said, "Time to go back." So I said, "I had to try." I replied, "Boss, only my wife and parents will miss me, and they'll be upset for a few weeks, then get over it. People are strong and will persevere." He laughed and said, "Nope, you're going back." Like I was switching channels, the place started to dematerialize and split up. I believe our seen world in other realms is all channels and frequencies. You have radically different realities right now around us. I felt a sinking, I believe, frequency dropping feeling, and he just faded, and I fell into darkness. I got down near my body and was at this scary place before I went back in. I didn't want to admit that for years, but I figured people should know. We didn't want to hang out at a lonely, depressing place near where we are today. You don't want that. Once I was back in my body, I woke up a few hours later and saw all the apparatus I was hooked up to. My blood pressure was rising, and it was 44/0. I might wake up briefly before falling asleep again. I kept waking up to look at that, and the numbers rose. In the 60s and 70s, a nurse came by and said, "You're awake." I said, "I need to talk to you." She says, "I need to tell the doctor, and we didn't know what was going to happen with you." Okay, but first, why am I back here? I was home with my greatest friend, my lifelong brothers. How did I return? I answered, "I thought I bought the farm. I was sure of it." She said, "Honey, you were in escrow, but you fell out, and now you're back with us, and you're going to have to get over it." I thought that was nice, but I was depressed for days. Though not clinically depressed, I'm sad to be returning. You could feel it fading and shortly talk yourself out of it. I told everyone I knew, death is a joke. Don't worry about it. We've reversed that. It's a 10 million% upgrade instantly. I told some guys who lost a child or parent and were struggling that. I add, nobody died, we've just slipped out of the physical and we've gone home. I remained me after leaving my body through all that. This is hard for folks. I was fundamentally me. I shared our inner chatter and wicked humor. Just crossed over, perfect change. I was still me, but there. I believe the point is that we've all lost loved ones in the worst thing in life, but we haven't lost. Never lost anyone. We never lost our pets. They're here. They're right there next to us after 2 weeks. I heard Tony Woody, the Navy chief, say that an officer told him, "You better stop telling this story," after a P-30 Orion near crash. Exactly what happened to me. It was a coworker. Nothing major. He adds, "Hey, dude, just so you know, people are starting to talk about you." I'm like, this is the best news anyone could ever hear in history, and I have to hide it. Zipped it and dummied up for 15 years. In 2010, I retired. Loves the stories turn right.